Sim, sim. Okay, hello again. Welcome to the panel regarding mobility. I'm André Cabrita Mendes. I'm a journalist in the Portuguese business newspaper, Jornal Económico. We're going to talk a lot regarding electric mobility, technology, developments, how the companies are developing products to satisfy their consumers and also helping the environment. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the research, what's going on. I'll start by introducing our guests. First we have Sophia Schepers. She's from Audi and she's the coordinator for sustainability, CO2 and e-mobility sales for Europe. Audi is one of the companies that's doing the energy transition day by day. Second we have Vanessa Romeu. She's the corporate communications director at Lidl, Portugal. The retailer has been developing some solutions for its clients precisely. We also have Gonçalo Castelo Branco. He's the intelligent mobility director at EDP Comercial. It's the main electricity company. They're also doing a lot of projects regarding mobility. And we also have Gualter Crisóstomo, last but not least. He is the corporate governance manager at CEiiA, the Portuguese Center of Engineering that designs and develops products for automotive industries, aeronautics, ocean and space. First, we'll start with the introduction. I think we can hear the introduction by Sophia. Hello, Sophia.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello.
From Germany.
Welcome.
And I brought a couple of slides with me, so I'll start with this, I guess.
Please.
So I guess I'll start until you see the presentation. So my name is Sophia Schepers, and as you said, I'm coordinating the topic of e-mobility, sustainability within the sales region Europe. So what I bring with me today is the customer perspective and the focus on sales. So what I would like to do with a couple of slides to show you, give you some glimpse into what is Audi contributing to a greener future. So the vision is to pursue a future of a carbon neutral mobility. And the goal that Audi is targeting is to reduce the carbon footprint by 30% until 2025 and to become a full carbon neutral company by the year 2050. And what are we following activities that are contributing to this? On the one hand, of course, it's a goal to reduce emissions generated by producing cars. And on the other hand, reducing emissions that are coming from the vehicles. And we are proud to tell that since 2018, we have our production site in Brussels, where our first full electric car, the Audi E-Tron, is produced, is fully carbon neutral. 95% of the emissions generated are fully covered by green energy it generated itself. And the remaining 5% are treated with offsetting projects. And we are quite proud to tell that we have a new partner. With Climeworks, we're having a partner that is not only offsetting CO2, but can also reduce it by taking it out of the air via their air capture technology and bringing it to the ground again so that it's really reduced in total. And when it comes to cars reducing CO2 of our vehicles, we've come here. Electric has gone Audi. Alongside several PHEV models which we have in line, we have launched our first full electric car, the Audi E-Tron, last year. And I must say it has been a really great step into this electric future. And it's not only one car, it will be a full BEV product portfolio, which we are envisioning. So we've started with the E-Tron, and we have launched this year the E-Tron Sportback, which you can see in the upper right-hand side. And it will be followed next year with the E-Tron GT, like a spearhead of our electric portfolio. And it will be followed by the Q4 E-Tron, which is an A SUV car, which is then really for the broader masses. So you see, we've stepped into the electric future, and we are really bringing this to a broad mass and are now really focusing on getting the customers now in the car. We now have models available, and now we can really focus on bringing this really to mass adoption. So this, in short, what we are doing right now at Audi. I'm looking forward what my colleagues will tell us, and I will be there for the conversation for your questions.
Thank you, Sophia. We'll hear now Gualter and its introduction regarding CEiiA. Please.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. We are the last but not the least, like you said. But I would like to start with two remarks, if you don't mind. The first one is to send a big hug to Sérgio Ribeiro for this amazing initiative of Planetiers in Lisbon. I think it's wonderful because we are in the decade for action, and this initiative is really action for accelerate and implement the SDGs. So I think Sérgio Ribeiro and his staff deserve a big hug for this initiative. The other remark that I would like to say is amazing, and I'm so happy to be in the panel with the gender equality. It's not very useful to have two women and two boys in a panel and in an area like innovation. So I'm so happy, and this is another brand like Planetiers have really implemented the SDGs. So, talking about CEiiA and what we do, we are an engineering center that is recognized by the United Nations as engineering center who accelerate and implement the SDG. We are very focused on the industry of mobility, not only automotive, but also aeronautic and space, like you said. But we work a lot on sustainable mobility. And we work in the atmosphere of co-creation. We bring the state, the cities, the companies, the academia, but also the citizen to work with us to co-create and develop products that can be sustainable. Sustainable in the three dimensions, in the environment dimension, the economical and government dimension, but also in the social dimension. The products or service that we develop should reduce the gap between rich and poor, should have democratized all the service for all the people. For example, in mobility, now we think when we go from A to B, we are changing the paradigm. We think that we need to understand the footprint that we do. We do as a citizen, we do as a company or a city or even a country. So if you can measure in real time the CO2 that you do for your mobility, if you have a good behavior of mobility, for example, if you go by electric bicycle or electric car or scooters, we can measure the CO2 that you avoid with that. But if we at the same time, you can valorate the CO2 that you avoid, and you as a citizen, if you valorate that CO2, and with that CO2 that you avoid, you can use that value to buy another product, another service can be sustainable. So we are rewarding your behavior. And in the end, maybe we can change the behavior of the citizen, the cities, and have a more sustainable world. So the technology is not the solution, but can help us to measure, to valorate, and to help us to make the transition of that CO2 that you avoid. So it's because that we think in this ecosystem, and we are doing this involving all these players. So this is the big challenge that we think that we'll do in CEiiA, is bring everybody for the same table and together co-create this type of service and projects, because in CEiiA we think that sustainability is not a marketing, is not brand. Sustainability should be in the strategy of the old companies. You really need to breed sustainability in all of this. It's a little bit of this that we do in CEiiA with also our partners, always with partners and in the atmosphere of co-creation.
Thank you, Gualter. Now let's hear Gonçalo, please, your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation. So just a brief introduction from my side, from EDP. So as the slide comes. So I wanted to bring the idea of the major shift and paradigm change that we are watching and in the energy transition. That's mostly driven by 3 mega trends, let's say. So decarbonization, digitalization, and decentralization. So these are 3 mega trends. So it's just looking at this slide. So the first one, decarbonization, it's something that's happening in the world. So it's predicted that about in 2030, 50% of global installed capacity to be from renewable sources. So for the last few years, the amount of new capacity that's being added to the market has been renewable, and this is increasing. In the case of EDP, actually, we already with 74% of our installed capacity from renewable sources, and we have a more ambitious goal than this, is by 2030 to have 90% of generated energy by EDP from clean energy, which is a very ambitious target that we are committing to. EDP already announced to decommission the coal power plant that was still remaining in Portugal, and we are a large player in renewables. And also the decarbonization is something that comes meeting the mobility, the electric mobility we're discussing today. So transportation is responsible for 25% of CO2 emissions worldwide, and it's actually a branch that is possible to address those emissions through electrification. So that's one of the pillars. The other one is decentralization. So what we are watching in the industry is that innovation is beating scale. So solar panels, more and more we can find them in our homes. Even industry players, they tend to contract energy through PPA, so power purchase agreements, specifically for their activities. So we see this is very motivated by new technology, by technology advancements that are coming into the market. Of course, the solar panels and the cost of the solar panels, we see now this more and more being competitive by its own, but also the other technologies as storage that will be very important to balance the intermittency of renewable energy, and of course also in the particular area of smart mobility, the electric vehicles, and one day these vehicles tend to be more autonomous, shared, and those evolutions that we are also seeing, and they come together with digitalization. So more and more our experience with energy is digital. So the amount of energy that we are more and more able as consumers to take care of our energy, to choose if we want to be a green consumer or even a prosumer, is how we call it sometimes, to a consumer that is already producing part of its energy. So this is overall the trends, where on the chapter of electric mobility they intersect in what we call smart mobility. Just a final note in terms of what EDP, or as utility in general, but EDP in particular, we are looking to this, is looking to the customer journey of an electric customer, so someone who owns a EV. So we are present from the beginning, actually. So even before you want to evaluate if you are ready to have an electric car, we have put on the market an app, a mobility advisory app that's called EVX. It's a free downloadable app. It's actually has been recognized internationally and also nationally. It won the best automotive app. So a utility like EDP is already, so this is an intersection of different sectors, but this is an app that you can test just using the app. You can see how many kilometers actually you do per day, how ready are you to have an EV. So this fights some anxieties that sometimes users have, and we're seeing that the majority of people do less than 50 kilometers per day. So more than 85% of the trips they don't need to charge. So this is something we came up with 2 years ago already. And then we are developing some solutions for charging, of course, at home, at work, in public charging. And this is important because people tend to look to EVs and to the experience of charging as a parallel to what's happening in combustion. So sometimes people are not comfortable enough to have an EV because they don't see the network, the charging network available. But it's important to understand that 80% of the charging of an electric vehicle will occur at home or work. So it's much more similar to our phone, actually the charging experience, than it is with our combustion cars. So these are a series of different solutions we are also addressing that comes with other challenges. And this is what we are doing at EDP also as an enabler to this transition, not only by the charging solutions themselves, but also for green tariff plans that allow this transition, because if you have an EV, it's important that you charge it with clean energy more and more, and that's what we are providing also to clients.
Thank you, Gonçalo. Now, Vanessa, let's hear your presentation regarding the Lidl.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Let me see. So while it charges, so basically, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we see sustainability at Lidl, so you can understand how mobility fits into our sustainability strategy. My name is Vanessa, and as corporate communications responsible, my role in the organization is, above all else, to make sure that everyone is going in the same direction. So we were talking earlier about the importance of sustainability being part of the DNA of a company. And I'm very proud to say that in Lidl this is the case. There is every single area of the company has a focus on sustainability, be it purchasing, be it human resources, be it logistics, be it engineering. Everyone is very aware of the role they have in creating a better tomorrow. And in that sense, they're also very involved in guaranteeing that we can work on three main pillars. And these three pillars are sustainable lifestyles, because as we all know, we have one planet, but we're fast depleting our resources, and we have to teach younger generations, current generations, the importance of consuming wisely. The other big topic is protection of our planet, as we'll go into a little bit more detail there. And the final, but not least important, is the support we give in the development of our local communities. We're multinational, we're present in more than 32 countries, but we have a very strong focus of proximity and being close to the communities where we are present. When we talk about the European Union's goals, they're very, very ambitious, and this means obviously we all have to do our bit. When we're looking at the dimension of the carbon footprint and very high level here, internally in our business we're working on three big areas. The concept of a consumption efficiency. Lidl is a discount supermarket, and as a discount supermarket, we are very focused on costs and efficiency of our operations. So it's natural that this concern has been with us for a very, very long time, but as the whole concept of sustainability becomes more mature, it becomes even more important that we are very consumption cost conscious. And what do I mean by that? I mean that things like food waste, things like electricity consumption, the kind of equipment that we have for our for cooling in the yogurts in the supermarket. We look at everything in a very cyclical manner to make sure that what we're doing is the most efficient possible, not only from a cost perspective, but also from an environmental perspective. Another big area what we're working on is on renewable energy. So as of last year, we only consume energy that comes from renewable sources. And for that, this is a very important point for us because obviously we consume a lot of energy, and this allows us to reduce our CO2 impact. And the third important point, being a food distributor, is obviously the logistic optimization. So we work here very closely with our suppliers to make sure that when a truck leaves a warehouse, it is 95% full. So we try to optimize the maximum capacity. We're constantly reviewing the routes to make sure that they're the most efficient as possible, reviewing the scheduling that's being done so that from a consumption perspective, this is reduced. But what about mobility? Well, when we're talking about consumption, transport is obviously a topic. Gonçalo's already mentioned this. For us, it's very clear that we can do so much in our organization, but then there's another part, which is society, that needs to be involved. And we're very conscious that we have a role in the middle, where we can be a broker, where we can stimulate a society to adopt more socially responsible values. And we do this throughout our sustainability strategy, and electrical mobility is an example of this. So in effect, we started in 2016. We had our first 3 stores with fast chargers. In the north and 2 in the center. Then this year we decided to go strong, and we will have, by the end of our fiscal year, by the end of February, we'll have more than 40 chargers, fast chargers in stores, in 40 different stores, which allow us, and the stores were selected, so that you can travel from north to south and east to west using electrical mobility and green energy, because that's a very important point for us as well. The energy that we are feeding into these chargers is coming from renewable sources. And this is clearly for us an important topic. And the other important topic, and 2 panelists before were talking about this, which is this has to be part of the business on one hand, but it also has to be sexy and convenient for the consumer. And if sustainability is too hard for a consumer to bring into its life, they will not adopt it. Therefore, we invested in fast chargers precisely to guarantee that you can go shopping, takes you half an hour, and in half an hour, 80% of your battery is charged, thereby enhancing also the customer experience in our stores. And clearly our focus here is we're looking at the present so that we can care about the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. I'll start the talk asking a question to Sophia back in Germany. Sophia, hello.
Hi.
Hi, Sophia, regarding mobility issues, Audi is doing a major bet on electric cars, as other brands are, but I would like to know, Audi customers love big cars with powerful engines. It's a premium brand, so how do you're starting to bet on electric cars? They're obviously very different than combustion cars. How has it been, the reaction of Audi customers? Are they? Do you have new customers with electric interest in electric mobility? Do you have the old customers that are passing from combustion cars to electric cars? How's this change been in the company?
So we've started with the first full electric car as a C SUV car. As C segment, and the SUV is such a hugely growing segment. So that's why we really chose this segment, as there are customers in every respect. And when it comes to the customer itself, are we focusing on conventional customers or on new ones? We are focusing on all, because we need all in order to bring really the volume onto the street. And we see that with the first press feedback and sales feedback in the markets, we see that this concept fits perfectly into the Audi sphere, so to say, because electric drive is not a compromise. It's quiet, and you have acceleration rates that are really quite competitive. So you need not find a compromise by saying, I want to drive electric and I don't have the comfort anymore, which I used to within premium OEM. So this really goes into the right direction, so that we still can keep our current customers by a convincing product and gain new customers that are really sustainability driven and can combine this now with premium mobility, because this was at a couple of years ago not really available. So we are quite confident that we can, with our products and the upcoming products that are just presented, will go with the flow and do not take any compromise on this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sophia. I'll pass on to Gualter to ask a question. Gualter, how's CEiiA, a research center? What have been throughout the years the main challenges regarding mobility? You said something very important, that it's you want to democratize the access of these developments to everybody, and not just build rich toys for rich people. And what are the main challenges for CEiiA in the development of mobility?
Yeah, we have been working in sustainable mobility more than 10 years. When start all the electric mobility in Portugal, we are the front runners of that project with companies like EDP. But now we are in the situation we are even further. We work a lot with cities to decarbonize the cities in all areas. And for example, and try to work with them not only to integrate the different models of mobility in the cities and can measure also the CO2 that sustainable models of mobility in the cities can reduce the footprint of the city, but also, for example, also to engage other players, other stakeholders to be also in this movement of decarbonization. And it's very interesting because we have here a company completely different. Okay, we have the energy company is related directly with electric mobility, sells energy. We have Audi, they sell cars. But see, you have here another stakeholder. If you think they sell food, they don't sell energy, but at the same time, with this new paradigm, they are also in this area. Maybe with this all decarbonization and this new technology and this new paradigm can also involve new different business model that we can, for example, bring this type of actors for this. For example, if I'm a consumer and I'm focusing on the consumer, if I'm good from A to B and I reduce the CO2, and with that CO2 I evaluate that CO2 and I can go to Lidl, for example, and pay one part of my shop, or if I pay the last mile of the delivery of the shop with the CO2 that you avoid, that is a new business model. For example, if I can pay a part of the green energy that EDP sell to me by electric cars with the CO2 that you avoid with the good behavior, we have another business model. So we are very focused on this, to work with cities, to work in different areas, but not only just to have a platform who can see who is putting energy or not. No, be more integrated area and help the cities and the company to contribute all integrated to the decarbonization of the world, of the cities. Is a little bit of that we are doing, and try to engage different players and different stakeholders to this movement.
Thank you, Gualter. Gonçalo, looking at EDP some 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you only produced energy and sold directly to its customers at home and companies. Right now you're producing energy, selling the energy, but you're also selling solar panels, you're also selling electricity for electric cars. How's it been, this change, and for EDP, obviously, that is now a more integrated company, and what are the challenges, and what do you feel they are the needs of the customers right now regarding mobility and regarding sustainability?
Well, I think building on what Gualter was just saying, we see this is a paradigm change, and so the value pools and the value chain as we used to know it has actually been challenged. So we can see now is that we will have new value pools that will drive from the future, and actually there's no competitive advantage of specific incumbents. So we see auto OEM companies or digital companies or renting companies or utility companies. Probably they can all be integrating some kind of an offer for an EV for an end client. And so they are all shifting from their normal places on the value chain and looking for new and adjacent markets where they can be on. So I think that in mobility it's obvious. So as well to say, we have Lidl here that's already providing charging solutions for their clients with green energy. So I think this is exactly the idea of ecosystem that's repeated over and over within the e-mobility. But I think it's important that we understand this and that we can cooperate and integrate the offer for the client, because I think any of these companies alone will be able to integrate this offer to their clients. So it's important that we can understand this an ecosystem, and I think it's something that we've been active on in many international forums and with other companies. Specifically for the charging infrastructure is something we do with different partners, hotels, supermarket chains, and different kind of players that we interact to and we partner with to provide this infrastructure. But as you were saying, André, I think these behind the meter technologies that are rising, they are creating new business. So what we call it the new downstream. So now a company like EDP, I can actually be selling solar panels and understand one day storage. So it's important to understand that these new markets are actually a need from the client. So because you will need the scarce resource of the future will not be the energy, but the power available, if you compare the two. So I need to manage the power that I have available, because if you start putting EVs on the grid and they need to charge, if all the EVs reach the company and they start charging at the same time or in a condominium, that's a problem, because the infrastructure is not ready for that. So smart charging will be needed for this. The integration with renewables, with the solar panels, probably something that you've done in your stores is integrating the solar panels. That gives you an extra capacity of power that you can bring to have a fast charging station there that normally you wouldn't be able to. So it's a need to interact with the grid also and behind the meter, and this is understanding those technologies and integrating them into the client in forms of products and services. That's exactly where we are trying to enabling that transition.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Gonçalo. Vanessa, it's for some people it's quite a surprise to arrive to a Lidl and find people charging their electric car. How's it been the feedback from the customers? Do you think it's do you have more customers? Well, maybe not. It's not easy to say to count it, but how's it been the feedback of the people?
The feedback I think has been very good. I would say the one good thing the pandemic brought is an awareness to sustainability issues and the need to care. And I think here our timing was quite similar. Obviously, we had this planned before COVID hit the world, but this awareness has made it much easier for the consumer to understand the importance of this. And you clearly see a trend. I think 11% of the cars sold in the first semester were electrical cars. And so this obviously shows that people are much more aware and wanting to integrate this in their life. We have had a constant usage, so we can measure the success. Obviously, in some regions of the country, there's more usage than in others, and I think that's one of the challenges of creating this network of charging stations, because obviously you're going to have a much higher populational density with electrical cars in urban city centres than you're going to have in more isolated parts of the country, and that needs to be looked into. But as a rule, our consumers are very acceptant of our sustainability strategies. We've done that with plastic. We were the first to stop selling plastic bags in all of our supermarkets, and the reaction has been very, very positive. So I would also say they expect us to keep pushing the envelope and trying to lead the way in sustainability matters in the retail sector.
Gualter, there's been a lot of talk about electric cars in Portugal, everywhere in the world. But what do you think that the world will be? Will be 100% electric? Will be hydrogen? Will be also some diesel, some gasoline? What do you think? What's your analysis on this? A lot of energy, a lot of technologies. One technology.
I think it will be a mix of technologies. I think the mobility, it will it will be more sustainable in the next year, but will be a mix of technology. In some countries will be more decarbonization mobility, in the other countries will be a little bit more CO2 mobility, but will be a mix. But the important is that all together can go in the same way and try to work together to the decarbonization of the mobility. And starting for us as a citizen and change our behavior using the OEMs, using the companies of energy, the retail company and the other companies, but all together. But at the same time, the message that I would like to say is, as a citizen, we also have responsibility. If we change our behavior, we also can contribute for a more sustainable mobility. And that's the main idea. The technology can help us, but the first driver to move should be us as a citizen. The companies can help us, but if we don't change our behavior, it will be difficult to have more decarbonization mobility.
Regarding electric cars and the car market, I will ask a question to Sophia. Sophia?
Yes.
Yeah, hello. Sophia, in Portugal during the last months, well, obviously also hit by the pandemic and economic crisis, but there was, the car sales dropped, but the electric car sales were stable or not so bad, or not such a bad drop as the combustion car sales. How's it been in the other markets for Audi? How's it been the market reaction? Do you also have the car sales drop? The electric cars have been stable. How's it been for you in your several markets?
Exactly the same situation all over Europe, which is quite crazy, so to say. I mean, the dealerships, they were closed, so they could not sell any cars at all. And then they ramped up the volume again. And as you mentioned, there was a quite stable progress of the BEV and the PHEV cars. And this is what Vanessa earlier said. This can be seen as a positive thing out of the pandemic, that there is an awareness in really focusing on sustainability. And we also see this at other OEMs. So this is a huge trend. And this is now a huge movement that we all can use now to bring this forward. And as you all were saying, basically the same. This is a thing of collaboration right now, and we have this movement and the spirit, and every customer itself can now decide how to contribute, and you can now buy the right cars. And I totally agree, it's not only about one technology. It's important that we reduce the CO2 in general, and if you want to use electric cars or plug-ins or whatever, but every single contribution in this respect helps. So I can only address this, that we need to collaborate and everyone can participate by its own contribution.
Regarding also sustainable energy, Gonçalo, how's it been for EDP? There are new rules here in Portugal regarding electricity production from home. The people are more interested in solar panels in the last months. They are buying more. How's it been for you?
I think, as we mentioned, I think a result from the pandemic was this environmental conscience that is much more vivid among consumers. We see that on the sales of EVs. Actually, in Portugal, we had a growth of 67 and 80% in the months of July to September against last year. So, and with more than 11% of the total sales being electric. So you see this is rising. In terms of consumption that we can see of our clients in the public charging, this has already gone up for the values that we had before the pandemic. But it's true. So I think more and more, this was already happening. Okay, the rise of the electric mobility, the targets that were predicted to 2030 or 2040, they will keep being revised always with higher values. So this was happening. But I think this somehow we can see this is happening higher. And as you mentioned, there's there's this interrelation with EVs and the network and other technologies. For instance, the vehicle-to-grid technology, that one day I can use the battery of my EV to feed my home or my neighborhood. Actually, EDP just launched the Bairro Solar initiative, which is like a solar neighborhood where I can install solar panels if I have the home or the premise that's right for that. And some of my neighbors can adhere to that and use the energy that I'm not consuming from that. So this is actually a product, and we are aiming to have 15,000 of these solutions in the next 5 years to 150 megawatts. This is quite relevant. And there's the question of the second life batteries of EVs, which is something that will rise. A battery of an EV is sufficient to support the consumption of a home for a whole week. So this brings a huge amount of opportunities to derive from that.
Thank you, Gonçalo. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up. I will just go back to Germany to say thank you to Sophia.
Thank
Bye.
you that
Bye.
you've joined.
See you next time. Thanks. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
See you next time.